Welcome everyone to this video, my first live here on YouTube. I just wanted to share with you today what I'll be covering this week in my English classes, particularly looking at the mistakes that were made in my individual and group classes in regards to grammar and vocabulary. And if you are either an intermediate or advanced English level learner, I think you will get something from this. I think you will learn from these mistakes, and I will be taking you through the corrections. But not only that, also giving you some tips and things of ways that you can improve for next time, ways that you can shortcut your learning because it is very difficult to learn language. I know what it's like as learning French myself. I'm an intermediate advanced learner of French. So I know what it's like to learn a language and to try to not only understand the grammar rules sometimes, but actually implement it and use it in practice. That's another thing. So I'm going to give you some kind of hacks and shortcuts and ways that you can memorize and work around different grammar rules. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be divided into three main categories of mistakes that I've seen in this last week. So without further ado, let's get into the main mistakes. So let me just share my screen. I am going to do that now. Let me just I have to share the slides. So yeah, you should see me on the left and my slides on the right in green. Yeah, so here you are. Now take a look there and what do you think is the mistake? So we have a good news, a strange behavior, and some advices. So, if you are a more advanced learner of English, you may spot the mistake there. But I will explain it, don't worry. And I am just going to be taking a sip of some water. Might be a clue as well. Going to take a sip of my water. Okay. So you can, of course, if you want to write it in the comments, that will help you to participate and engage. So what do you think it is? Okay, I'm going to tell you now. I'm going to tell you. So basically, all of these has something in common. They are all a particular type of noun, which is uncountable noun. And as you see here, the first one, a good news becomes good news, a strange behavior becomes strange behavior, and some advices become some advice. Why is that? Because these nouns are uncountable, which means that you can't count the amount in these nouns. That is strange because in your own languages it might not be like that. But just to give you an example of water that I was talking about, my water, water is clearly an uncountable noun because you can't really calculate how much water is in here, all the molecules of water. So we say some water, we say a glass of water. And it's the same for these examples, which are more, talking about ideas and, professional situations. So news, you can say some news, but never a news. You can say, I have news, I have good news, I have some news, I have a piece of news. The same with behavior. It's strange behavior, it's some behavior, it's a type of behavior. So in this context, it would be a type of behavior. You could use that. And for advice, you would say it's I'm giving you advice, I'm giving you some advice, or I'm giving you maybe a piece of advice. So yeah, you can use with some, don't use any article like a or the, and you can use of, a piece of, a glass of, for example, to talk about these uncountable nouns. Now, you may know this in theory, if you are, intermediate, advanced English learner, if you're watching this and you can understand me. But in practice, you may have some doubts with some of these words. So I just want to show you a way that you can um, find this when you're looking in the dictionary. So I was looking in the Cambridge Dictionary, and it's very easy to miss, or no, it's very easy. Sorry, it's very easy to miss basically because you see the little arrow here and the U. The U stands for uncountable. So behavior, it does show it here that the noun is uncountable, but it's not very easy to see that. But just so you know, if you're looking in the Cambridge Dictionary, it's going to be the U for uncountable. Sorry, just go back to that. And then if we gave another example like opinion, opinion is countable because you have a C there. So that's all. So that's how you can check. So basically, if you have a doubt about any of these, I would check in the dictionary and see some examples as well, how they are expressed in these sentences. I think Cambridge is good because it gives you lots of really authentic sentences that you can look at. So yeah, that's the first little mistake that I see, not just in one person, but in many people. So it's definitely a pattern and something, a very common mistake to make. But if you can understand that rule and make sure to check any of these ones that you're not sure about, then it should be fine. So let's move on to the second one. So the second one, now these are examples of the lovely phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs, they are difficult. They are difficult sometimes. No, I'd say they are difficult all the time. And but they are really useful. They're really useful for understanding native English speakers because we use them all the time. But they're fun to learn. I think teachers also love to teach them. English teachers love to teach them, and they are fun to learn because they have really different meanings and nuances, but they can be difficult to put into practice and to remember exactly, what goes with what, to use it correctly. And this is a very good example of that because I've corrected this a few times. To care about and to care for, they sound quite similar with that caring thing, but you could make a very bad mistake. You could leave with the wrong impression if you mix and confuse these ones. So just giving you the meaning. So to care about is to have a strong feeling of love or affection for someone or something. And so here's an example. Well, this is more in the negative. She clearly doesn't care about us because she does whatever she wants. So yeah, caring about someone is something that it's not really an activity, it's a feeling. But you could mix it up with care for, and that's what I've seen, and that can be a bad mistake to make, basically. So to care for is to protect someone or something and provide the things they need. So this could be if you're a parent, you care for your child. If you're a nurse, or if you're caring for your pets, caring for your plants, you're a nurse or a doctor. So caring for is the activity, but if you say that they don't really, they're not caring about their child at the moment, for me, that's something, oh, okay, they don't love their child. So you need to be careful with those two. But as I said, phrasal verbs, they're hard to remember, they're hard to learn and to put into practice. So what do you do basically? Well, what I would suggest is, you don't actually have to use phrasal verbs all the time. You can look at alternatives like I have here. So, phrasal verbs are very good for understanding, if you can understand at least a general sense of what a native English speaker is saying to you, that's good. But you don't always need to use them all the time. Like, it is good to use phrasal verbs, definitely, because it makes you sound more natural. But you can definitely try to avoid a few, especially this difficult one, care about and care for. So I've just given you some alternatives here. So for care about, you could say that you like or you love someone. I know it's very simple, but I think it's safer. You could also say to be concerned for. You could also say to have a strong feeling for someone, or strong affection for someone. That's a little bit formal and old fashioned, but yeah, you could say that. So to like or to love someone. And then to care for. There's some very good alternatives for to care for. There's to look after, which is completely the same thing. It's a synonym. You can say, I look after my children, I look after my pets. It's exactly the same. So it might be easier to use look after and then keep care about. Oh, I nearly made that mistake. You could keep care about for that other one. but just look after it's completely different in how it is. So also to mind, it's a bit more informal, but you have the word childminder, like a babysitter, to mind a child. So that also could work. So I hope those alternatives are useful because I think you don't want to make that mistake, do you? And it can be quite confusing and difficult in the moment to try to use the right one when you're speaking. So let's look at the last set of mistakes, and I would call this set of mistakes the trying to translate directly into your language and not taking a precise note of what it is in English. So I teach mainly, like I would say 90% of my students, English students at the moment, are from European languages. So they speak French, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian. So they make similar mistakes, but I also have other languages. But yeah, I do notice the same mistakes over and over again because they are kind of translations from these languages. So if you're a speaker of one of these languages, you might recognize it. For example, the first one, I am agree. What is the correction in English? But I am agree, it's a very, very common mistake to make. And it's a direct translation. I know definitely from French, you say that, but we don't say it like that in English. The other one is it depends of the weather. Depends on the weather. What is the mistake there? And the next one is there's two mistakes here. I made a mistake myself when I was putting this together. It have been in Italy since 2 years. What is the mistake there? So I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. If you want to write it in the comments, that would be great to help you to really get thinking about that. And I'm going to show you now. So I am agree, it becomes I agree. So just directly I agree. So it's a little thing, but it definitely makes a difference in your speaking if you can correct that and not think of the direct translation or something else. It's I agree. It depends of the weather. It depends on the weather. In English, we don't have masculine and feminine nouns where we have to remember these kinds of things like in other language, like French language, for example. But we do have a lot of prepositions to think about. And this kind of preposition is linked with the verb depend. So when you learn this verb, you should really think about learning to depend on. So that's the best way to learn these prepositions, linking it with the verb and writing it down in your notes like that to remember to depend on something. Again, that's a translation from your own language to it depends of, but try to find ways to practice it regularly, and you'll see it as well coming up in context. And the other mistake, well, first of all, the subject, it is I. That was just a mistake. That was just a typo. But I have been in Italy for 2 years because since is a fixed time in the past, since 2010, since last week. For is a duration of time, for a week, for a month, for a day. But since is, usually the day or the year, like since Monday, since 2010. So that's a very common mistake in the European languages that I see probably every week. So if you can try to practice that and eliminate that mistake, it will be really good because it will just up level your English. You will sound much more polished and natural. So I would say just try to remember one sentence for each one, like here. So for since, you could say, I have been in Italy since 2010. I have been in Italy for 2 years. So those are the two that you can remember and then use them correctly. So I hope you enjoyed that, a review of my week in classes and all of the things that we went through. Just to finish, of course, you should not feel ashamed about making mistakes. It's all about learning a language. Actually, making mistakes is probably the fastest way to learning. You learn through trial and error. I think not only in languages, but in everything. So yeah, so just experiment, enjoy that period, well, maybe not enjoy it is it's frustrating to make mistakes. You know, we're taught not to make mistakes in school. We're taught to be kind of perfect. But I think in a language, experimenting and using the language and making mistakes in the process, it's all part of it. So yeah, I would love to know, would you like a part two of this? Maybe in a few weeks I can give you another review of my class for the week. So I'm just going to stop sharing this screen and say goodbye to you. And thank you for joining me in this video today. And I will talk to you in the next video. Thanks very much. Bye, everyone.